Concerns around the national budget gets our attention today with reports of curious insertions into an appropriation act that already carries the weight of a fiscal deficit of 31.45 trillion naira amid persistent economic hardship. Some of the curious allocations include the 1.3 billion naira budgetary allocation to a fake agency named PFIPC, or questions raised by Public Accountability Organization Tracker around the constitutional basis of 22.15 billion naira allocated in the 2026 budget for the construction of 106 royal palaces across the country, and another 8.05 billion naira earmarked for the construction of places of worship nationwide. As if that was not enough, presidential candidate of the ADC and former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar last week alleged the existence of 12.8 trillion naira concealed under the service-wide vote in the country's 2026 budget. These revelations and others around the 2026 budget that we shall explore today on the program raise concerns over weak oversight and just how hands-on the executive is in budget planning. Welcome to Political Paradigm, coming to you from Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka, standing in for your regular anchor, Terry Kumi. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break to bring in our guest. My guest today is someone who has a fair idea of the inner workings of government and how things move around. So let's get insight into what may have transpired without necessarily reaching conclusions, of course, until the courts and the National Assembly come up with the results of their investigation into this particular Presidential Foreign Intervention Promotion Council. And my guest today is Mr. Sani, a former special advisor to former Vice President Namadi Sambo during the era of President Goodluck Jonathan. Of course, he is also a media strategist, a media and communication strategist. Mr. Sani joins me from our Abuja studio. Mr. Sani, good afternoon and welcome to Political Paradigm.
Good morning, Bukola. How are you?
Very well. It's afternoon, actually. We're glad you could join us. While the court has set a date for the arraignment of this self-styled DG of what government would have us believe is a fake agency, the House of Reps has begun its own investigation. And just days ago, we heard the head of the Civil Service of the Federation saying that the office never allocated an office to Mr. Adeyemi, and she indeed explained that while applications were made, the request was made for an office at the National Secretariat, it was never granted because the necessary documentation were not provided by this agency. Is her explanation satisfactory?
You see, when you come to this type of situation and the thing gets bad, everybody wants to, get out of the problem. So there is no agency of government that will accept responsibility for anything at this moment, because the presidency has already declared that the guy is a fake person. And because of that declaration, nobody will take responsibility. The CBN will not take responsibility. The Accountant General Office will not take responsibility. The Office of the Chief of Staff will not take responsibility. The Office of the Head of Service will not take responsibility. And the Office of the SGF will not take responsibility. Everybody will be working towards ensuring that they withdraw, they are safe in the whole thing, because at the end of the day, they will be affected by the outcome of the investigation. So everybody will not be safe. But, as investigations go further, that is when we will begin to see who and who is involved. You can see that there are so many, gifts in the whole thing. For instance, the Office of the Accountant General is giving different perspective of the opening of account with the CBN and so forth and so on. So as time goes on, we will begin to find out if the investigation is really thorough, you know, and there is no sentiments attached to it, you know, everything will come out very clear as to who was responsible for what and how. Because nobody can just go to the Federal Secretariat and occupy an office and begin to sit in that office without any authorization from anywhere, whether official or verbal. They can tell you, go and start using it, pending when your application is treated. And then he will now go and sit down and start working. So anything can happen.
So if he didn't get an approval or an allocation for the use of an office at the National Secretariat, the question then is, how did he get an office in the National Secretariat where he operated from while he, you know, was the self-styled DG of this PFIPC? Is it possible that perhaps within the inner workings of government that somebody high-powered, you know, superseded the authority of the head of the Civil Service of the Federation and gave him a go-ahead to use an office at the National Secretariat? Is that a possibility within the National Secretariat?
You see, the head of service at this point is in the eye of the storm. And so the head of service will naturally come up with what she has, you know, within her desk. And what she has within her desk may be his application untreated or about to be treated, or is on transit. It has been treated but has not been released, or even it has been released but has not been forwarded. So they will now withhold it. So anything can happen. Like I said, the possibility is that there could have been personal contact. You know, the chief of staff could have said, okay, please, head of service, can you allocate office for him, pending when we will regularize it, you know, or the SGF can also say so. SGF can say, please, this is our employee. You know, we have already taken him. Kindly issue him an office, you know, pending when things will be regularized. And then he will get an office. But he cannot go on his own, select an office, enter the office, and begin to work in an office in the Federal Secretariat. That is not impossible.
Now, as we continue to x-ray this particular matter, the Chief of Staff has since answered the call of the ICPC for questioning. Does that send a strong enough signal in line with the call and public outcry from Nigerians that indeed he should step aside? While he hasn't stepped aside, this you know, appearance at the office of the ICPC for questioning, does it suffice amid this continuing probe?
No, you see, the probe is not even supposed to go to any government agency. If it goes to any government agency, it can be, anything can happen, it can be manipulated. You know, the government agency, because perhaps they have a very good relationship with him, or there could also be a presidential interference in the matter. You know, so things may not move the way it ought to be. Perhaps the president loves him so much and he doesn't want anything to happen to him. So he's sending him to ICPC with a clear instruction. Please try to find him not guilty. And so the public confidence will be lost completely from that type of investigation. What we want is, an unbiased, a neutral people, including the civil society and all relevant people that will come in and investigate the matter thoroughly and convince Nigerians who is truly guilty and who is not guilty. But in this particular case, you know, even where a guilt is established against the Mr. Adeyemi, Nigerians will still not believe it. There will be no trust. There will be no conviction that really the man actually, you know, was not cowed into. You can see the police went to arrest him to do this. You know, Nigerians have begun to see a pattern of intimidation, you know, to really break him down so that he will now go in line with government investigation. But ICPC is not the right place to go. And whether he appears in ICPC or not is immaterial. What is important is that people must believe that the investigation is fair, is neutral, and that the people involved are people of high caliber, people with, record of integrity, and good reputation. And that will put the investigation in the sound pedestal. And then Nigerians will now be convinced. If he is said to be guilty, Nigerians will believe that, yes, you are guilty. But as it is now, I think nobody takes the ICPC matter very seriously.
But should we take the investigation by the House of Reps seriously? Don't forget that the Chief of Staff to the President is himself a former speaker of that institution. And if they have decided to say, we are going ahead to probe this, should we trust the process for them to have the courage to embark upon this probe, which of course borders on their former principle?
The issue is not even about whether he was a former speaker or whether the House of Reps, are determined to conduct a transparent investigation. What is most important is how has the House of Reps fared so far in this dispensation? Can Nigerians trust it as a very effective house that has always stood by the people? It is important that Nigerians begin to, that the House, in investigating this, may have two, set of people involved. The House has always tallied with what government wants, and what clearly is what is government's desire and plan. However, now we are in a period of politicking, and because we are in a period of politicking, some people might have looked for tickets, and they have not gotten the ticket, and so they are angry. So in their investigation, they will try to be very aggressive against the government, so that government will now begin to look at the possibility whether during substitution they can now be brought in, because they have been wronged. So the investigation may not have a very sound mind towards, bringing, everybody will key in his interest in the investigation. And so I don't believe that the House of Reps has the wherewithal to be able to investigate this matter thoroughly. There could be influence in one way or the other.
Two things before we leave this particular subject and go to other concerns around the budget. Do you expect the House of Reps to summon the former speaker, its former principal, for questioning, since it had decided to embark upon this probe? And then, on the other hand, who issues a letter of appointment to the DG of any agency in the first place? And I ask because all of the government institutions involved are denying. The Office of the Chief of Staff said it didn't issue a letter of appointment. The Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation said it didn't issue a letter of appointment. So who issues a letter of appointment to a DG of an agency? And which officials should we be questioning, amid this scandal?
You see, by protocol, the office of the SGF is supposed to superintend over this. They are supposed to issue letters. However, because of the nature of the villa, people, slide into other people's responsibility and carry it out, even without official approval. If they are in good terms, good working terms, So, ordinarily, the Chief of Staff is not supposed to issue a letter of appointment. But if he does, and he has a good relationship with the office of the SGF, it stands, because nobody will question it. If not because of this issue has become public, nobody will go into details as to who actually gave him a letter. If he had been functioning, it would not have been an issue as to where he obtained his letter, provided he is discharging the functions of that office, and that he has already been, certified as, not fake. But now that he has been certified as fake, the issue of who issues letter will come into play. The issue of how the letter was issued will come into play. The issue of why the letter was issued is and by who. So even the person who signed the letter will come into play. The SGF is supposed to be the one to sign the letter, but he can also delegate the responsibility and say, okay, head of admin, sign the letter, or head of the directorate of social, sign this letter. Now, if they sign the letter and then the matter becomes a problem, the SGF will now say, no, I'm denying, I don't even know anything about that letter. And then the man who signed the letter will not be in problem. He will not be left with serious consequences of trying to extricate himself, you know, and things like that. So it is not entirely correct to say that the chief of staff, you know, when you are a chief of staff, that means you are head of staff of the president. And so certain times you have some discretionary powers like this, and then you can just, you know, whisper to SGF, please, let me issue this letter. You can say, okay, go ahead. Since nobody will go and report to the president, there is a good working relationship.
So you are emphatic on the point that the chief of staff indeed has a case to answer in on this particular one. And do you think
yes,
that
I believe so.
Do you think that the House of Reps would have the courage to summon its own former speaker to answer questions amid its ongoing probe?
No, they can summon him. Summoning him is not the issue. But the issue is whether they will ask him the right questions. The questions that will now show to Nigerians whether he is guilty or not guilty. If they summon him and they begin to become friendly and they are chatting with him over tea, and then they are clapping their hands and shaking their hands, and no tangible thing comes out from, you know, the summoning, it's more or less of a waste of time. But if they summon him and then they grill him, ask him the right questions that ought to be asked, and then they listen to him, respond to them, and then they will be able to decipher and determine whether he is actually part and parcel of the scheme or not. And that is what we want to know. Is he part of the scheme or is he not part of the scheme? If he is part of the scheme, let the due process take its course. But again, he cannot be in that seat and people will intimidate him because he will still have world influence over certain things. And you know, in the House of Reps, they have a regard for their former speakers. So whichever, if he had been given any appointment and he needed to go to the House of Representatives, you know, for screening, they will only tell him to take a bow and go because he is one of them. And he also, as it is now, he is also part of the influence, you know, as to even when he's outside the House of Representatives, he's part of the people who will determine who becomes speaker, who becomes deputy speaker, who becomes this, who becomes that. Who, you know, so he is well grounded.
And so, you know what is eliciting this as well as apart from the concerns around forgery is the fact that this agency was able to secure a line item in the budget to the tune of 1.3 billion naira. Speaking of other concerns around the budget, Tracker, a unit of Budget Foundation, is also identifying the existence of curious insertions into the budget and has questioned the constitutional propriety and the mandate of the institutions that have gotten allocations for the construction of palaces, to be precise, for the construction of palace, there's an 8 billion naira allocation, and for 22.1 billion rather, and for the construction of religious centers, there's an 8 billion naira allocation. Now, many have frowned on this, but what about the role of the executive in this, Mr. Sani? You have been in the executive before. Even when the National Assembly exercises its appropriation powers, when it gets to the executive for implementation, why doesn't this come up as a concern for the executive in the area of implementation? Why are there no whistles blown until we hear it from development associations like Budget and the others, who, by the way, say that this has been going on for a long time? So why isn't there any whistle blown on the part of the executive?
Okay, let me address this issue very squarely. You see, the issue of budget is a very difficult issue between the executive and the legislature. The executive brings the budget as a form of an executive bill to the National Assembly. And members of the National Assembly will also like to insert those things that are very important to their constituency, and that will also promote their political life within their own domain. So you will see a lot of insertions. Now, previously, there has been arguments as to why will you insert this? Because you have inserted this, I will not sign the budget. It had become so popular. Now that what normally happens is that the executive allows them to do whatever they like. They put everything they want to put in the budget. But when the president signs it, when it comes to implementing those areas they put and the presidency is not aligned with it, it will not be implemented. That is when you will hear people shouting certain aspects of the budget have not been implemented. But they will not tell you. They will not bring it to public notice that what we are saying is that we have put some so amount of money for the building of palaces and they have not been implemented. They will not say so because they know there will be public backlash. But they will be shouting that it is against the Constitution for a budget not to be implemented wholly. Then all those things that have been inserted into the budget, why you will catch the executive is when they begin to implement those things. Once those things, if you see palaces, contracts have been awarded for the for the renovation or for the building of a new palace, then you begin to wonder, does the work of Nigerian government include building palaces and so forth and so on?
So Mr. Sani, if you're saying that the executive really is in bed with the National Assembly on this curious insertions into the budget for the construction of churches and palaces, then if we went by anything that the development experts are telling us, that this has been going on for a long time, that means that the administration that you served as well is guilty of this particular trend in budgeting.
No, what you ought to understand is not, don't try to push a blame on our administration so that you believe that because my explanation does not go in line with your general thinking. No. You see, like I'm telling you, it depends on the leaders. Now, some leaders don't like to argue. Some leaders will not sign it. If you take a look, there are so many things that were brought to Buhari during his period. He refused to sign. He said he will not sign them because perhaps it is not part of the intention of the budget. So he refused to sign. There are so many others too like that with Jonathan. He refused to sign. So many things that were brought to him. But if a leader believes that, look, these are the people I put there. I am the one who supported them. I supported the member of the House of Representatives to become Speaker. I supported Akpabio to become Senate President. And they have brought this thing before me. Let me not argue with them, but I will not implement it. Let me just approve it and I will not implement it. And so there will be no implementation even if it is part of the budget.
All right. I will need to do an audit of the budgets between 2011 and 2015 to be sure that the administration that you served can be absolved of blame in this particular trend in budgeting. But just before we go, and I'll appreciate it if you can do this in 60 or 90 seconds at best, the presidential candidate of the ADC and former vice president is also alleging that there is existing in this 2026 appropriation 12.8 trillion naira concealed under service-wide vote in the budget. What are your thoughts on this? Should this remain in the level of allegation, or there is a possibility that this in fact, does exist?
Well, you see, a budget is a public document. Anybody can get a budget, look at it, and then fish out things he believes are not supposed to be there. The candidate of the ADC is within his political rights, and constitutional rights also, to fish out things he believes, are fishy within the budget, and then to bring them out to public for public scrutiny. And so, by doing that, exercising his constitutional responsibility, the public will also be able to scrutinize. And in such scrutiny, the public will be able to determine whether such things are, there are something hidden for ulterior purposes or that they are for good intention.
All right. We must anchor at this point. There could be many more follow-ups to that, but we must thank you very much. Mr. Umar Sani is a former special advisor on media and communications to former Vice President Namadi Sambo during the Good Luck Jonathan era. He's also a media strategist. Thank you for bringing your experience to bear on this conversation.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back. And so in part 2 of the program, we'll explore opposition party politics with particular interest in the electioneering process. And my guest today is no other than a former chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, Mr. Yabagi Sani. Mr. Sani, it's good to have you again on the program.
Bukola, it's really a pleasure to have you, and I thank you very much for having me.
Of course, this is a regular engagement between us that comes up time and again. But today, let's start differently. Your political career spans, back to the early 90s. You've been presidential candidate of the ADP in the 2019 election. You've been chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council. You've in fact also been hands-on in the formation of political parties, specifically the ANPP. Am I correct?
ANPP, or rather, yes, you are correct.
So the question would now be, yes, as your party, shows up again as one of those asking to be trusted for the top job in the country, why should voters trust your administrative experience that translates to managing national security and state affairs? Specifically, why should Nigerians trust the ADP?
Yeah, well, governance is about knowledge. And if you have the president or a group that possess the knowledge that is required to run the affairs of the country, definitely the citizens will believe in the team. And this is what we are bringing to the table to steer the ship of Nigeria in the right direction. Because what has happened from what we have seen so far is that the act of governance has been left to a kind of experiment, and Nigeria cannot afford any experiment, with their lives and the future of the country. Because every day you hear of one program or the other and then the promise you hear is that, no, it will be okay after some years. After some years, after all of us are dead, or when are we really going to benefit from these experimental, programs that is coming from the present administration? One that has failed woefully is the issue of removal of subsidy, and also the unification of our currency, that is the exchange rate, which has not yielded the desired results. Because what is good, of a program is how it impacts positively on the lives of the citizens. So this is why, and we believe that there is a very strong nexus between politics and the economy. So if you have a government that does not know how to run the economy of the country, then of course, the nationals become, are left in a wilderness, as to how they are going to fend for themselves, how they are going to even secure the future for the country and for themselves. And that's what we're experiencing. Because this Herculean task, I mean, these excruciating programs that have been brought on board to organize, or rather put our economy in the right frame, is not yielding the results that the nationals are looking for. So that is why we are saying that it's about time that Nigerians begin to look at other alternatives, and we are the credible alternative. The essence of governance is to impact positively on the lives of the citizens. That is not happening today. So what use is that government if you cannot improve the welfare of the people? You can't guarantee the security of lives and properties, and this is what is happening in Nigeria today, with a lot of shenanigans and rhetorics and things like that. Especially on the issue of security, it's something that we believe every Nigerian today is living in fear. And that is not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be that we are guaranteed, our safety, our security. We are guaranteed, welfare, because we have enough. Like we all know, this country is a promise of greatness. We have what it takes to become great, which is national endowment. We have them in abundance. So this is why ADP government will definitely bring knowledge, and will put that knowledge at disposal of Nigerians, whereby it will impact on their lives, without, killing them in the first instance and say we'll resurrect you again.
I deliberately started that way because many have consistently, or time and again, more appropriately, criticized you for holding on strongly either to the position of national chairman of the ADP or to being its presidential candidate without room for, expression for other members of this political parties. They say you have held that position for as long as anyone can remember. Why are you holding on tightly, the ADP, to your apron strings, Mr. Sani?
No, aside from the fact that continuity in every aspect of life is something that is one of the fundamental requirements for, especially when it comes to the issue of running the affairs of citizens in a government. Political parties, our party came on board in 2017. That 2017, we have a constitution which allows the caretaker committees to run the affairs, or the interim interim executive to run the affairs of the party for 4 years, and then after that we now went for elective positions. Election, and then which means we had just 4 years, and then we are now running the last 4 years, which means the 8 years that's guaranteed in the constitution of the country. So people saying that I'm holding to the aprons of the party without allowing others to come, that is not true. Nobody has stepped forward that they want to run for run the affairs of the party or to become the president of this country without we stopping the person from contesting. No, that is not the truth. The truth of the matter is that, like we politicians, some of them, they want to go to where the food is already ready, it's made. They don't want to labor. They don't want to sacrifice, to build, a strong party like what we're trying to do.
But Mr. Sani, some have criticized you again in the past, or have pointed out that what you do simply is to use the ADP as a negotiating tool for the highest bidder during electioneering season. At a particular time, some have said that you have covertly handed over the structure of the ADP to a presidential candidate of the PDP at that particular time. And basically, that's what you do with the ADP. Is that the case? Do you use the ADP as a negotiating tool during electioneering seasons?
No, it's a lame, what do you call it? It's just the usual blackmail that people, embark upon. When they cannot find any truth in any facts, on what they are saying, because there's no fact to that accusation that have handed over to PDP. I can't, who in PDP that we handed over our party to? No. We contested very, very effectively and vigorously to ensure that we win, the elections. If anything, ask any political actor in this country, they will tell you, we don't accept the issue of selling our party or even joining other parties if we do not believe that they share in the same philosophy, which we have, which is to provide Nigeria, like I said, with a leadership that has the education and then the experience and the exposure to lead the country in the right direction. I have not seen that in PDP or any other administration that has gone before this time, and even present administration that is going on to, we see that there's not anything that the nationals, the citizens, can take out of this government other than the suffering that Nigerians are going through. So past governments, PDP or whatever, none of them will tell you that they negotiated with us and we said, okay, we are going to allow you to win, or we are going to they sell our party, so that you can take advantage of what we have. That's never the case. And if anybody tells you that, ask him to give you the evidence. I'm not sure anybody can bring out any evidence, because for long, since I've been in politics, I've never sat down to anybody to shortchange.
So Mr. Sani,
so that is not true.
So Mr. Sani, as presidential candidate of the ADP in the 2019 general election, you are telling us that you never covertly worked for the candidate of the PDP at the time, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. You never secretly worked for him.
Not at all.
Because they say that you know full well. They said that you know full well that you cannot win the election, but you just secretly work for bigger candidates, just to profit from the season. All right. So let's.
We never had a meeting with any one of them.
Okay.
Never. Not even to sit down do anything. No.
Okay, let's make progress now.
That is not true at all.
Who is the presidential candidate of the ADP? Is it you or Ambassador Aliyu bin Abbas?
Ambassador Aliyu
bin Abbas. So this time around, you have decided to yield the floor for another, for fresh blood into the system.
Listen. Exactly.
Okay, so that's cheery to know. So talk to us about the candidacy of this individual and why should Nigerians vote for Ambassador bin Abbas?
Well, Nigerians should vote for ADP because we crave for change, so that the country can now, like I said, be taken in the right direction to take advantage of those things that I said God has given to Nigeria in terms of natural endowment and even the people, which is the most precious asset that every country, relies upon, which is the human capital. And we have them in abundance. And it is time to also allow youth and women to come on board so that they can be given a seat at the table for them to be able to make their own contribution and see how we can take the country out of the woods, as far as administration is concerned. So this is what we are bringing to the table. And this is what we want to say to Nigerians, that it's about time that we infuse, like you rightly say, fresh blood, to advance, the course of administering this country, so that we can catch up or even surpass those that we started with long ago, in the 60s, like we had, if you look at countries like Malaysia, South Korea, those countries that today are described as developed countries or developing, we are still being regarded as a developing country or as a third world country. We shouldn't be so, given what we have. And the only way we can turn things around is when you allow new ideas to come into the system, so that Nigeria will become what it should be. That is a fast-growing economy that delivers for its nationals and citizens.
But
that's what we are here for.
In every race there are the contenders, and some would say the others are perhaps the pretenders. And in the 2027 race, the identifiable contenders are the ruling party, the ADC, and the new entry, the kid on the block, the NDC. And so immediately the classification for your party and the candidate will be, one of the pretenders in this race. So what is your strategy to show up as visible as possible in a race where there are already deciders who, in the parlance, would be the a three-horse race?
Well, what we have is, like you say, something new, something that I believe will excite Nigerians, something that I believe will show Nigerians that we are the credible alternative. Because you cannot be doing the same thing the same way and expect different results. So this is why we need to change the strategy. We need to bring on board things that we know will give you that confidence and believe that yes, maybe it's about the time we change our strategy. And the strategy is that you don't continue to believe in a group that has held back the country for as long as one can remember. All the teams you have mentioned, those you have mentioned, are the old people that were given opportunity before, but they couldn't really make anything meaningful for the people of this country by the opportunity given to them. So if you talk about those parties you mentioned, it's the ones that have failed us, woefully. So why should we continue in that direction? So this is why we need to now have a change of direction. We need to now bring in something that is different. And because we need to do something different. We can't go on just killing ourselves, suffering our people, giving empty promises, and then believe that that's how Nigeria can progress. No, Nigeria cannot progress like that. Other countries are not progressing like that. And like I said, we have what it takes in terms of the requirements, that is resources, human capital, and even the size of the country itself, and what we represent as a country in the global setting, economically, politically, socially. Nigeria is not, a laid-back country. We are supposed to be in the forefront as a country that is progressing and then is delivering, to the people of the country.
But these are lofty ideals.
The mandate given to the people.
But these are lofty ideals, yes. But the reality...
But they are realities, but they are...
And that's what I'm about to talk about. The reality is ahead of every presidential election, perhaps months to the election or a few weeks to the election, we always see political parties emerging, the smaller ones now, collapsing their structure and supporting the presidential candidate of the ruling party. We've seen it time and again in every electioneering cycle.
But
so regardless of what
ADP.
You're telling us now, will the ADP not do the same months to the election?
No, we never did it before, and we're not going to do it because we know that we know what we represent. If we say we're the credible alternative, why should we join other parties that we know have failed the country, and with evidence that empirical, evidence that they have failed the country woefully? So why should we join them? For what reasons? There's no reason. There's no impetus for us to join them. So this is why I'm saying that what ADP represents is that alternative that is required for this country to move forward. It's not, and we have never, if you check our history, not the hearsay. I'm talking about maybe pronouncements from me as national chairman or president of the presidential candidate of the party. We have never, said that we are going to support, another party that we know, cannot deliver. No, we have never done it. And we're not going to do it because we know that this country deserves better than what we're being dished out to the country. And then you can see the kind of politics we are playing in this country. That even the ruling party is playing, which is to the detriment of the democracy itself in this country. Because a situation where you gravitate towards one party system does not in any way support that promise of greatness that this country deserves, that it is. So this is why we are saying that we cannot be part of the crowd that you are talking about. Those who, and then when you look at also even the kind of anti-democratic, steps, moves by the administration, it doesn't say much of good, Democrats or people that are really, that believe in democracy. That is not what we are seeing. When courts are being used, institutions are being used to manipulate the process so that other parties cannot, have a breathing space for them to give their best, for the benefits of this country. That is not what democracy is all about. What we are having today is not democracy. What we are having is a situation where a few people came together and then a kind of oligarchy or something like that.
Again, Mr. Sani,
manipulate the system.
You have taken us back yet again. You're criticizing what you term the oligarchy and a gradual gravitation to a one-party state. But you have been national chairman of the ADP for about 9 years. Am I correct?
From 2017, yes.
So you very much look like what you're criticizing.
No, not at all. I told you that, nobody has stepped forward that they want to be the national chairman of this party and we say no, or want to be the presidential candidate of this party and we say no. No. And we cannot just allow the party to be there without having a very strong, presence. But
the evidence of success,
in the country.
But the evidence of success is the ability to reproduce itself. So why has your party not gone shopping or groomed ideal successors to fill that position? What about the other board members of the ADP? Do they not qualify to be chairpersons of the party?
They qualify, of course. That's why they're in the party.
So why don't you yield ground? Why don't you yield ground for someone else to take leadership of the ADP?
No, like you see now, we have yielded the ground for somebody to run as the presidential candidate of the party, and we are also ready to yield the ground if we have somebody who's competent enough and can, meet our set objectives for Nigeria. We will give in the party, of course. Don't forget that I formed this party alongside other individuals, who were passionate about giving this country the kind of leadership that it deserves. So it's a legacy that one would like to leave, that we have put something in place which is delivering to the benefit of the country, and it's growing. That's what you want. Growth is what everybody is looking for, and the legacy that you want to leave behind is something that can even be long after you are gone is still there. And then growing. So that's why we are trying to put in place those requirements.
So in a democracy,
the elements.
In a democracy like Nigeria, where the population, particularly the youth who dominate about 60% of the population, are yearning for change, you want Nigerians to accept that for 9 years you have been unable to groom an ideal successor to take up position as national leader of the ADP after you. In 9 years, you have been unable to produce a successor.
Yeah, you see, you have to understand the mindset of Nigerians, especially we politicians. Nobody wants to sacrifice anything. They don't want to sacrifice and then benefit from it. If you ask them to come to the party, they will say, no, it's a new party, it's growing, we want to wait until when it has grown and then big, and then we can announce. So nobody wants to make that sacrifice which we are making, which I am making also. So it isn't that it's something that is very easy to do, believe you me. We have tried by all means to attract people to come, but they like to go to the parties that are in power or parties that can give them contracts or give them positions and things like that. They don't want to work to build, for tomorrow. And that's what we are doing. So that's why you don't find them coming in the way that they are killing themselves in PDP or APC or ADC, as the case may be, and others that you see today.
Mr. Sani, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm not mistaken, prior to Ambassador Aliyu bin Abbas's emergence as a presidential candidate of your party, you had declared interest in the race, right?
Prior to that?
Yes.
No. I said after the last outing, I said that this time around we are going to give somebody a chance. That was from the beginning. That's what.
All right. Thank you for that clarification.
Right from the word go.
I could have sworn that I read somewhere that you were emerging as the presidential candidate of the ADP yet again for the 2027 elections. But let's make progress and explore other.
Whoever tells you that is lying.
Let's make progress now and explore other subjects. You have often expressed skepticism about the independence of the Independent National Electoral Commission because its finances come from the federal government, and much of its appointments are often criticized as members of the ruling party itself. What constitutional reforms would you be proposing to guarantee true independence of the electoral umpire?
Well, it's obvious that you cannot, you cannot have an independent body, where the person that appoints, the officers that run that body, to be the person that is also contesting elections in the case of INEC, like you are saying. So we believe that if we want to have a truly independent, INEC, as the case may be, we need to divorce it. That is, disconnect it from the office of the president, because the president, often than not, is also a candidate in the elections. And you now say INEC should now, should supervise and then be fair to everybody. It's not possible. So this is why we are saying that either we have a system where stakeholders come together to now, appoint or nominate somebody that National Assembly will ratify. Not one person who is also an interested party to do that. So we are looking for a situation where we can come up with a stakeholder committee of stakeholders who will now say, okay, let this person be through some process, like people can write that I want to be the chairman of INEC, and then you check their credentials and see if they can really, function, and they can do that job, and then the stakeholders now will come together and then maybe recommend somebody to the National Assembly for their own, for ratification. So that's the kind of thing that I think will give the kind of independence required, for INEC. And it's not only INEC. If you see the situation we have, all the institutions that are supposed to supervise, the election process are all appointed by Mr. President. So it's a situation that is a fait accompli by the time you are even starting the elections themselves. So this is why we want to have a change, the constitutional amendment that will guarantee that independence, not the one we have now, which we all know cannot guarantee the kind of independence we are looking for. So that's what we have been asking the National Assembly to do. But take for instance, even where the Constitution says that INEC should have autonomy as far as their finances are concerned, it's not allowed to have that autonomy. Still the budget of INEC goes to Mr. President. It is treated as if it's the budget of one of the parastatals or ministry or something like. It shouldn't be so. It should be that you should have the first charge, line charge, like is recommended, that is in the Constitution, so that you take it from the consolidated revenue, where money is given to INEC to run their affairs. But today, what do you see happening? INEC has to go cap in hand, to the government to give them money before they can run even the basic, as responsibilities that is given to INEC. So that is not good enough. That does not talk about independence. Like the saying goes, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. And this is what we are trying to avoid. So it's a situation that is long overdue for National Assembly to do the needful, so that we can now have a situation where this country can progress and then, achieve that greatness, like I said, this country. Because recruitment of leadership to run the affairs of the country is very, very important. And the only process where we recruit leadership is through elections. And if these elections is already manipulated, it's in the hands of one person, how do you guarantee that you are going to get people that will deliver, for the people of this country when they are given the opportunity? So this is the point we are making.
Yeah. Mr. Yabagi Sani, your party, the African Democratic Party, has our best wishes.
Action Democratic Party.
Action Democratic Party has our best wishes as it enters the 2027 presidential election. And hopefully by some miracle, it emerges victorious. We hope that these recommendations and these reforms that you're proposing will become a reality. Thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you, Bukola, for having me.
Mr. Yabagi Sani is the national chairman of the Action Democratic Party and a former presidential candidate of the party in the 2019 election. Thank you for your time. And that sums it up on the program for today. We'll be back again same time next week with another edition of the program, Political Paradigm. I am Bukola Koka, standing in for your regular anchor, Terry Ikumi. Bye for now.